allegedly have a good stream, according to our friends at YouTube. Now let's see if it's going to catch up over here on the player. And it should soon. There we go. That'll meet the ad. Alright. We should be all set up. Okay. So it's Sunday morning. I think some of you can hear me. Hoping. Okay. Can any of you hear me? There we go. Okay, now it's caught up. Excellent. Okay. It was not telling me how many people were watching, so I thought maybe nobody was watching. But as it turns out, some people are watching. So that's good to hear. Alrighty, let's see here. Stefan E. is painting his dwarves. Hello from Germany. Okay, alright. Hello from Sweden. Gary West is painting 20 Plague Monks. That's in my future eventually as well. I'm mainly working on skeletons right now, but I will be doing the Plague Monks soon. I've got I've probably got 13 or 14 of them built. And then once I get the rest of them built, and they have those woe stabs, and they have those little pieces of paper or whatever hanging off of their woe stabs, that's the hardest part for me to glue. So once I get all those done, then I have to texture the bases, and then it'll get to painting. But it'll probably be in a month at least before I even get started on those guys, because I've got a lot of skeletons still to finish. Alright, so greetings from across the pond, and by pond he means over in Chilton, which is it's still here in Wisconsin, so it's a smaller pond than the pond that we usually talk about. Denmark, Norway, Kansas, Spain, UK. So I move this mic a little bit. Iceland. Oh, cool. I don't know I moved ahead from anyone from Iceland before. Excellent. So yeah, it's been a long week, is what it's been. It was good. Philippines and Norway, but yeah, I was gone in Utah for. I left on Monday, this past Monday, and I got back on Friday, late Friday, technically very early Saturday morning. It was a long week, so I'll show you some pictures and stuff, and talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Let's see, Arkansas, Michigan. Greetings from Upper Michigan. I hope you show off Conflict 47. Well, I will, but not today. Actually, while I was gone in Utah at the Valhalla Wargaming Retreat, there were times when I wanted to, not be surrounded by people and games and things like that, and take a little bit of me time, and then I would go find a place and I would sit and I was reading on the rule book, which is enjoyable. So, California, Austin, Italy, Saskatchewan. I love the word Saskatchewan. Germany, Morgantown, West Virginia, Middle Earth. I don't think that's the case, Jake. I don't think that you're coming from Middle Earth. Pennsylvania. Let's see, where else? UK. So yeah, I did, however, just recently pick up some olive drab airbrush primer for my Conflict 47 guys, because they're US, so it's the US kind of olive drab as opposed to the colors that other groups would use. That's one of the nice things about Conflict 47 is that it's not, in bolt action, if you paint your guys a little differently than is what is historically accurate, you will get, usually there'll be somebody at some tournament or something or whatever who'll be a little bit just like, that's not the right color, their pants weren't that color or whatever. Well, with Conflict 47, because the timeline basically changed in you know, like, what do you call it there? The timeline changed in 1943. You can be like, well, you know, in 46 they decided to change the color of the pants for reasons, and so nobody seems to matter. Let's see here. Stream seems to be good. Someone mentioned that the stream's dead, but haven't seen that so far yet. Let's see. Quick hi from Denmark. Just about to start painting up some African Kingdom warriors for Congo. That's pretty cool. Got Maine, Australia. Uncommon asks, Adam, why white primer is so a big problem sometimes. White primer can be a pain, from what I understand, because of, and I have the same sort of issue, like, even with airbrush, my white primer has a tendency to dry on the tip of the airbrush much more than the black primer. And I think it has something to do with the physical properties of the pigments. White primer pigments, I think, have to be larger or something. I'm no paint scientist, but I do know that white's difficult. It has a tendency to dry out more. Red is also very difficult for other reasons. Like, red is a color that fades more quickly than most other colors due to the wavelength of the color. And yeah, white primer is like 50% chalk. That, I don't know if that's exactly the case, but yeah, the pigments do have to be big to make white primer work well, and to be very white. That's the other thing too. So yeah, white primer is problematic for everybody, not just you. That all being said, it can also be problematic if you're using spray can and it's a very humid day. It will be chunkier. If it's sometimes too cold, it will dry on its way from the nozzle to the model, and then it will hit and not, like, you know, spread out. It'll just be like clunk and just land on it like a big chunk of stuff. And so yeah, that's not so good. Rusty McNally says, do you need to use expensive primer, or can you just use standard spray paint? Well, that's an age-old question, frankly. The painting that the primer that I first used when I first started getting into this stuff was actually automotive primer. So it's not like a 99-cent can of, you know, black spray paint or white spray paint from like Walmart, but it was like a $4 or $5 can of automotive, sandable automotive primer is what I started to use, which is far cheaper than Games Workshop spray primer or P3 spray primer or any of those other companies. So a sandable auto primer, if you're looking to kind of cut costs but still get a really nice primer, those, if you go to your local automotive store, are great. And they can be very, very fine, and they usually have a decent nozzle too. They don't have like a real cheap nozzle. They usually have more of like a little, there's like a little trigger kind of thing on the top, as opposed to having to push the entire barrel down, you know. So yeah, take a look into sandable automotive primers. I used to use here in America a company called Duplicolor, and you know, the thing is, they don't have a lot of different colors to choose from. There's usually like black, white, and gray. Sometimes like what they'll call an oxide red, which is how I painted my first 40K models, my first Tau, is I primed them with sandable auto primer, oxide red, and then after they were all dry, I dusted them from above with like an orange spray paint, and then it made like a nice like highlight on the top of their heads that then faded to like a darker, you know, warm color like that. And it worked out pretty well. Did some details and some washes after that, and that was pretty much it. So yeah, yeah, Dakota's right there. Use car spray paint designed for plastics. That's the best thing you can find. But like I said, a sandable auto primer will work well. If you're interested, I did a video a while back. It's my only review ever on the channel, so you can look to a keyword search for review probably. But the Krylon camouflage paint line is great for a lot of situations. They make a really nice black, a dark brown. So the black is, if you're using black primer anyway, you know, their black is really nice because A, it's got their fusion technology in it, so it sticks really well to plastic. So it's not going to stick as well to metals, but still pretty well. But plastics and resins, it should stick pretty well too. Secondly, because it's never good to be, if you're trying to be camouflaged, it's never good to be shiny because you will make reflections and then people will see you. Camouflage paints have a tendency to be basically ultra flat, so ultra matte, so which makes them take their next layer of paint really well because it can kind of soak in a little bit. You know, it's got something to grab onto. So that's really cool. Yeah, so I love those things. Black is great for if you just need something black. The dark brown is good in a lot of situations too, especially if you're going to be painting over it with warmer colors. If I was going to do, I don't know, if I was going to do like really kind of grungy or a little bit battle worn and dirty Stormcast, and I was going to use the gold metallic as their, you know, like metal color, I would spray the brown from Krylon first, and then I would do all of the gold on top of that, because then if it doesn't get into every last nook and cranny, at least it's like a warm shadow down in the nooks and crannies, and it kind of works out nicely. They also make 2 tan colors, which are, one of them, the lighter one I think, is the one I use for my skeletons all the time when I can, and then they also make 2 olive drab type military-ish kind of colors, because, you know, camo. So if I was going to be painting, let's say, I don't know, Imperial Guard tanks, I would absolutely prime and base coat with those greens, just because you can do so much with it, and they work out really great. Ryan says he used the camo primer for his zombies from BP. I'm not sure what BP is, but it works great. Yeah, like I have used it for, like I did my Beastmen in that color, and then did washes and things over the top of one of the tans. I've done Nurgle stuff in that green, you know, using one of the green colors, and then done washes and details and stuff like that, and highlights, dry brushing and everything. It's a great base, so yeah. Douglas says, for terrain, I find that sanding a plastic surface lightly will accept even a cheap primer. Yeah, if there's a bit of texture, you know, on the thing, if it's really super shiny plastic, it's a little bit more likely to be able to flake off some paint. But if you do a little bit of light sanding, especially in big flat areas, you can really make it stick a lot better if you're having issues. That's a good tip. Let's see here. Alexander says, hey, I'm just starting playing Infinity since I'm into sci-fi games, but there's one important question. Can I paint miniatures the way I want them to look, or do they have to look like in the box? You can totally paint them any way you want to do. Yeah, you don't have to paint them any specific way, from what I understand. It's different because it's not fantasy, but you know, it's not real. Yeah, you can definitely kind of just get that. You know, you can paint them however you want to go. Let's see here. I'm planning to start painting Warhammer. Do you have any tips for beginners like me, looking from your perspective? It's badass. Cheers. Well, thank you, Marco. Definitely make sure to prime your miniatures. You know, that's super important. Make sure to scrape off as many mold lines as you can, because and look really closely for them. Move the model around in the light so that you can kind of catch a shadow a little. Sometimes you'll look at a mold line, you won't see it because there's no shadow properly from the way the lighting is. When you turn it the other way, then you can kind of see it. Yeah, so that kind of stuff is kind of important. So that kind of, yeah, definitely make sure you get your mold lines off, because once you put the paint on them, then you'll see them really easily, and that'll be a bummer. So let's see here. So a lot of people are talking about a background noise. I don't know what that could be. We don't have the furnace on. My computer is over here, but that's always been there. So if you heard a new background noise, it's the same background noise we've always had, because my computer is right there. You can't see it, it's just right back there. And I can't really move my computer anywhere, so I don't know what that might be. I'll have to take a look at it, listen to it later. I can't listen to it right now because the headphones, if I listen to it, I won't hear myself, so that won't work. Let's see here. Tried your tip with baking powder for basing. Any good tips if you want more depth? What I would do in those situations is I would, before gluing down the baking soda, sometimes I'd glue down pieces of kitty litter or things like that, and then I would let that dry. You know, just some bumps basically, and then I put the glue over the kitty litter, and then sprinkle the baking powder, and then go from there. And that works out pretty well too, because then that gives you some kind of bumps and depth. You know, it doesn't look like rocks on top of the baking soda. It looks like basically bumps under the baking soda. So you can do that like that. Okay, evidently it sounds like a spinning washing machine. I can assure you we don't have any spinning washing machines going on here currently. I can take a look at the mic and see what's going on with that. Hang on. No, it's the gain's not turned up any higher than normal, so I don't know what that might be. The dehumidifier is off in the basement. There is literally no other noise going on in the house right now, so I don't know, and I can't hear it, so I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I can turn off the mic, and let's see if you guys can hear it after I turn off the mic. So, did turning off the mic help or not? Anybody got any opinions on that? Okay, Devin says it's still there with the mic off. You can still hear it. Well, that's weird. I don't know exactly how. There was an update to XSplit just before I started, so I had to install that. So maybe there's some sort of weird shenanigans. So let's see here. It's just background noise. Mic isn't causing it. It's not really that bad. It's probably still there. Well, if it was the computer fan, then turning off the mic would have made it go away. But since it's still there, then it's not the mic. And I'm wondering if it's something weird going on in the stream. Well, I'll have to look at it some other time. For those of you that it's too much, I apologize. And for some of you that are saying it's not that big of a deal, I appreciate it. I'll try to see if I can figure out what the problem is. I'll have to listen to the recording later on and see if I can figure it out. But right now, that's not what I can really do. So it's like I said, if it's anything, it's potentially something that got put in by the new update to XSplit. So yeah, we'll see how that works. Anyway, where was I? James says he's using headphones and it's only on his right side. Huh, well, that's weird. So I'll have to take a look at that too, and I'll listen to it with headphones as well, so I can see if I can figure out what the problem is, and I'll go on the XSplit forums and see what's going on. All right, so let's see here. What was I talking about? I was talking about primer. Yeah, currently myself, I've got a bunch of skeleton archers that I bought from a friend of mine that were already built, and they were on square bases because they were designed originally for fantasy, and they're prime black for some reason, but I got them for cheap. So yeah, I got a chance to buy those for cheap, and I am converting them, knocking them off their square bases, putting them onto round bases, and then I'll be texturing them, and then I will be painting them tan, my normal colors, and going through all the skeleton stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I didn't get a chance to work on them obviously all last week because I was at Valhalla, so I've got about 11 out of the 20 of them switched over, so I'm looking forward to getting them. Maybe this afternoon I'm going to actually work on them. Let's see, someone just asked a question about, back to the questions, have you had a chance to look at the new Gene Stealer cult stuff GW has come out with? I've seen a lot of the models, and they're really super cool. Somebody at Valhalla, I think it was actually Sean Gately from Blue Table Painting, he had a copy of the codex, but I didn't thumb through it. He was reading about it and kind of talking about a couple of different things when we were on the bus ride from the airport to the actual resort, and I think that was the first time he had gotten a chance to look through it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting though. I think that the vehicles that they've got, I think it's just the same kit but two variations. That weird kind of truck limo thing with the rock crusher thing on the front, I think is pretty cool looking, honestly. GW's been sort of, I think, doing really well with vehicles lately. The Torox for the Imperial Guard looks great, except for those weird treads where the wheels would be. There are companies out there now that are making resin wheel replacements, and they look great. My friend who owns the game shop, has 3 or 4 of them, and they're sweet. They really look cool. So when you put the round wheels on them as opposed to the treads, these new vehicles for the Gene Stealers have round wheels, so it also helps a lot too. Yeah. Alexander asks, are there any cyberpunk-themed skirmish games? I'm also a GM in Cyberpunk 2020, and I'm looking for some games like that. I mean, Infinity is a little bit kind of cyberpunk. I mean, there's hackers, and it's all sci-fi and that kind of stuff, and there's some robots and things like that. So you might look into Infinity. It's made by a company called Corvus Belli. They're in their 3rd revision of the rules. I will admit, their models are kind of for advanced modeling, because they're metal, and a lot of them have a lot of little parts. But if you can get past all that stuff, it's pretty interesting. Dakota says, yeah, you like the Gene Stealer new stuff? I like the look of a lot of the models, and I like the concept of Gene Stealer cults in general. Like, my very first, just anything, any exposure to Games Workshop stuff was originally playing the game with the Space Hulk. I wanted to say Silent Death, but that was a space combat game altogether different. Space Hulk was my first real connection to anything Games Workshop back in like '91, I think. A friend of mine had a copy of it, and we played it and stuff when we were in college. It was great. But he also had a couple of add-ons to it. He had one that I think was called Deathwing, and he had another one that was called just Gene Stealer, because they used to make add-ons to the original versions of Space Hulk. And looking through the fluff, like while we were playing the game, it talked about the Gene Stealer cults and the hybrids and how they were, like they would land on a planet and sort of infiltrate, and they would just kind of take it over from the inside, so that when the Gene Stealers and all the rest of the Tyranids would show up, they wouldn't even have to like fight against a bunch of stuff. And it was just really interesting. And they've stayed away from that stuff for a long time. They've really never mentioned it too much. You don't see it. I mean, you'd see it in the fluff and the codexes for the Tyranids a little bit here and there, but they didn't have any kind of models or anything like that. So it's really cool to see now these cool new plastic, higher-end models for that stuff. I was pretty impressed by what I saw. So, I mean, I'm not going to go out necessarily and start a Gene Stealer cult, but that you know of. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So it's just, I'm looking forward to seeing some people paint stuff up and make it look really cool. So that's what I'm really like. And when you do, throw it on the Tabletop Media's Paint Showcase Club so that we can all see it and tell you what we think. And people there are pretty good, so I think you'll get to see some good stuff. So did you die in glorious combat? Getting into Valhalla isn't easy, Well, no. First you have to fly into Salt Lake City, which isn't terrible. But then you need a bus, and you're on the bus for about an hour and 20 minutes. And right out of Salt Lake City, the highway is surprisingly bumpy. Like we were on this bus, and I thought, is there a flat tire? What happened? And it was just very, and then eventually it got better. And then you go through the mountains for a while, and then eventually you get to Valhalla. So I didn't have to die in combat. In this situation, I had to fly Delta. So that's almost the same thing from what I understand. Ryan says, can you find that primer locally? I had to source from Amazon. If we're talking about the sandable auto primer, then pretty much any automotive store like AutoZone or any kind of places like that would probably have that stuff in stock. If you're talking about the Krylon camo paint, I found it at Walmart. I found it at Fleet Farm, which is a relatively local Wisconsin chain. I think I found it at Lowe's too. So yeah, it should be available. It's not something super, super hard to find. Some places don't carry all 6 colors, so you might have to, there's that. But otherwise, yeah, it should be something you should be able to find pretty local. White Dwarf Blood Priest. Anyone enjoying painting it? It was... Oh, I missed it. Yeah, the Slaughter Priest, maybe, if that's what you're talking about, from White Dwarf. He's a cool-looking model. I've seen a bunch of neat ones painted online, and some of them on the Paint Showcase Club, so that's cool. Josh McCarthy says, that truck, I don't know how to put it in my army, but I don't care. Yeah, it is a neat truck. It's kind of cool looking. The new painter says, I'm slightly annoyed that they didn't bring back the cult's pimpin' armored limos. Those were a little silly, admittedly. I mean, it was back then in the 90s, it was cool, and funny sort of almost that they had these limos. And everyone was like, oh, they're bringing back vehicles for Gene Stealer cults? Is it going to be the limos? and it's not exactly the limos, but yeah, they're still kind of cool. Melanie says, I'm annoyed that they're going Gene Stealer cults, but not Sisters of Battle. I do not disagree. I find that there was a couple of people at Valhalla, at least one, that had a really huge Sisters of Battle army, but it was a bummer about how much metal there still is in that line, and you can't, it's so hopefully they'll bring them back. Now, all that being said, I also kind of hope that they don't bring back, I would like to see them be a little bit more, I don't know, just not like, battle nuns with, armor that shows off their curves. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need that. But seeing more female figures in the game would be spectacular. But I don't need the white-haired battle nun kind of. I don't know. I'd like to see them be a little bit more realistic in some fashion if we could. That'd be great. So, Brent asks, did you play Age of Sigmar with Sean? I did not get a chance to. We were gonna. We had plans to, but then I ended up getting pulled into a couple of different things with Mini Wargaming Dave and Quirk and Rob were there, and then when the time when I was free, then Sean had started another game with another guy who is just learning the game. So I was like, well, obviously, you want to teach more people about the game, so that's cool. So yeah, we never quite got the chance to do it. Mirth says, welcome back from Valhalla. Not going to continue watching this time. The new background noise is giving me a headache. Hope you get it fixed for next time. Well, I hope I get it fixed too. I don't know what's causing the problem, but I'll take a look at it. Let's see here. Dakota says, I agree. There was loads of fluff about cool Gene Stealers infiltrating the Imperium. Yeah, there's some neat stuff there. Currently painting up the Overkill box just for the cult. The aberrants are a pain. Anyone here should try and sub-assembly the arms for painting if you want to. Yeah, I can see why you would want to do that, definitely. Especially if you're trying to do, there are times when you sub-assembly, and there are other times when you're like, well, like with me, with Space Marines, some people really want to make sure to get that eagle thing on their chest, painted and sorted, and other people will not particularly want to do that and just want to get the gun on there and glued and then painted, and then that's usually me. But if you're getting with fancier guys, or if you have fewer guys to go through, taking the extra time doing some sub-assemblies, it kind of makes sense. So yeah. Any tips for painting Infinity minis? You said they were metal, so how are they harder to paint or what? Since I'm new to the hobby, I need to ask simple questions. Not a problem. With metal models, you definitely want to make sure to have a good primer. So like those automotive, sandable primers you get from the automotive store will work fine, but have a good covering, not too much because you don't want to obscure detail. The hardest part about metal models for me is generally putting them together, because CA glue, cyanoacrylate glue, sticks to plastic really well, and plastic cement also sticks to plastic really well. Very few things stick to metal really well, at least in our kind of glues that we use. There are people who will use Loctite, make something called, I don't know if it's Loctite that makes it, I don't know, some company makes something called JB Weld, but it's not necessarily for really small parts. Some people will use epoxy. I have been known to take a little tiny piece of green stuff and then put some CA glue on it and squish it between the two parts if you can. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does, and that can help. Other people will pin the parts, whereas when you drill a little hole on both sides of where the parts need to come together, and you put a little piece of you clip a little piece of paper clip, stick it in there. Yeah, so it depends on the model, but some metal models, like the stuff from Wreckage, a lot of the stuff from Wreckage is basically like a one-part model, or maybe you've got one arm to glue on, and things like that. But a lot of the older models, specifically from Infinity, from their line, can be tons of parts, and that can be sort of difficult to mess with. So yeah. Douglas says, I'm still not into Age of Sigmar yet. I like the look of Storm of Sigmar to get a bit of paint fun in very small battles to sell it to my son with. Yeah, Storm of Sigmar seems to be pretty kind of cool. I haven't picked it up, but it looks to be pretty cool. Dakota says, I just finished a Dark Elf team for Blood Bowl. Are you into Blood Bowl? Looking forward to the new release? Me personally, I'm really excited, as Blood Bowl was the first tabletop game I played as a child. Interesting story. I used to own Blood Bowl, and maybe still do. It might be in the basement somewhere. But because of the new models coming out, or the new game, really, although it's supposed to be mainly using the same rules, they're just basically updating the models, from what I understand. I picked up the PlayStation 4 video game Blood Bowl 2 just recently. Like, it was waiting for me when I got home from Valhalla, and I've been kind of playing it and sort of relearning the rules. So when the game actually comes out, which is either supposed to be end of this year or beginning of next, I have a suspicion I might pick it up and paint up the two armies that are in the main box, which I guess are, well, armies, teams. It's going to be the humans and the orcs, and then we'll see how it goes from there. And we'll see how, maybe my wife might be interested in playing, and I'll be playing hopefully with some people at the local, shops and things like that. So that'll be cool. But I am interested in kind of looking back into it. Like I said, I played years and years ago. Again, when I was in college, this was probably the mid-90s or so. So I haven't played it in a long time. But just playing the video game, because the video game does the dice roll, it's like the tabletop. It's not like a Madden football where everything's real time action. It's all turned, and you see the dice rolls and the whole deal and all that stuff. So it's kind of a cool little PlayStation 4 game, and I got it online for like $20, so that was kind of helpful. Let's see here. Jamblor says, "Hey, Uncle Adam, morning from Ontario. Finally made a live show because of our Thanksgiving weekend. I made some mention of Thanksgiving during Valhalla, and then somebody from Canada was like, 'You mean like this weekend?' And I said, 'Oh no, that's right. I forgot. You guys have a different Thanksgiving. Ours is in sort of late November, but so that's cool. I'm glad that you've got a little bit extra, take time off this weekend for the Thanksgiving. Hello from Belgium. Hello. Have you had any chance to try Silver Tower yet? No. I've seen it at Battle Report, which is not quite the same thing, but it's a little bit helpful. I've seen it up close I went to a distributor conference back in spring, but yeah, that's basically about it. I have not gotten a chance to play it yet. So are noobs welcomed in Valhalla, or is it more veteran-focused? Anybody interested in tabletop wargaming is welcome at Valhalla, from what I know. Most of the people there, because of the cost, it's a little bit more for people who are kind of serious about it. From what I understand, I think the cheapest ticket, and I don't know because I was an invited guest, so I didn't really pay for that. I had to pay for my flight and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't pay for the actual, lodgings and food and stuff. But I think the cheapest is around $500, but that's getting you, a week's worth of meals as well as a place to sleep and all that. But I think it can go up as high as $1,500 to $2,000. So, it's probably for people, if you want to do it, you really want to get into it, you'll get a lot of games in that week if you want to. So that's cool. And you can learn a lot of stuff. I demoed Drop Fleet Commander, which was cool. So yeah, I'd never played that. So that was kind of fun. So yeah, noobs are welcomed, but it just, however you want to go. Peter Pan's got a good point. There are no noobs in wargaming, only beginners. That's a very good way to think about it. I should do a video about that, actually, that there are no noobs, only beginners. That's a good point. Roddy says, trying to put together the Gore Chosen models, Core Hammer Skull is a total disaster. The pieces don't fit together at all. Well, that's weird, because most of the new Games Workshop kits go together really easily. You usually can't modify them really easily, but they can usually go together the way they're supposed to go together pretty easily. So that's interesting. Hello from Germany. If you say more realistic females, how do you mean that? There's not a single realistic male in the game as well. Okay, well, admittedly, yes, the males aren't particularly... I'm not saying, because a lot of the males are all heroic scale, which means that their wrists are as thick as my neck, that kind of stuff. But that's the thing, a lot of the Sisters of Battle, at least the older models, they've got very tiny little waists, and they've got this armor that sort of shows off their breasts and the whole deal like that. You don't see them, but they're definitely, molded into the thing. And I don't know, if any of you have played the Space Marine game for the PS3 and the Xbox 360 that came out probably 3-4 years ago or so, in that one there was I think she was maybe a captain or something. She was some sort of commander, well, or sergeant or something. But there was a character in that game, and she was in the Imperial Guard, and I thought that she was very realistic. Like, they didn't make her look all, you know, like sexualized and stuff like that. They just made her a female Imperial Guardsman and guards person. Anyway, and so she was. So I really liked that character, and I thought that was like a good step. But Games Workshop really has never really gone that far. You know, every time that there's, like, if they do make some female Dark Eldar, they're always, you know, it's just, I don't know. I mean, granted, Dark Eldar are all dressed like they're, you know, about to go on to Cirque du Soleil anyway. So I guess that's not a good example. But yeah, I'd just like to see them not look like sexy battle nuns. I'd like to see them look a little bit less like that if they're going to do it. I don't know. That's just me. Let's see here. Just started looking into Frostgrave, but personally couldn't find a Wizard Mini that I particularly like. Which companies make cool Wizard Minis? With a lot of mine, I converted them out of different parts, like Reaper Bones, or just Reapers, because Reaper also makes metal ones, obviously, too. But a lot these days, they're mostly known for their Bones line, because they've been doing that. But yeah, you can just modify a bunch of stuff and go from there. So yeah, it works out, I think, kind of nice. But modifying stuff works out pretty well. Bob Smith Industries CA glue is by far the best CA glue I've ever used. I keep them in the fridge when not using them, as they seem to have a shorter shelf life. Joshua, I use Bob Smith Industries glue as well. I get it from my local hobby town, but it's the same stuff. Yeah, I like that stuff. Gordon asks, have you tried Lion or Dragon Rampant? Find the rules super versatile and have used them for sci-fi and even 10mm. Again, funny story. It's not within reach. But I just picked up Lion Rampant from my local store yesterday because a lot of people in the comments for the show, the video I did about historical gaming, a lot of people said that I might like to try out Lion Rampant. So it was like $18 for the rule book, so I ordered it from my local shop and it showed up, and I finally picked it up yesterday after I got home. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. And so I want to take a look at that. I want to take a look at the Dragon Rampant too, because that one's more fantasy as opposed to historical, but I wanted to start with the historical version. And I'll take a look and maybe let you guys know what I think about it. Gloomdready is here. Hello. Patrick says, I sold off my Star Wars Armada and now I'm getting into Dystopian Wars. I've never played Dystopian Wars. I did play Firestorm Armada, which if I remember correctly is the same company. So I think the rules are... I think Dystopian Wars is maybe the one that's... There's like 3 of them. There's Dystopian Wars, which is sort of steampunk. There's Firestorm Armada, which is very sci-fi. And then there's another one that I can't think of the name of. That one is fantasy-based. And I think the fantasy-based one is the kind of most, not difficult, but the most detailed rules. And then it kind of goes down until it hits Firestorm, which is the easiest rules. And I know I've done a demo of Firestorm Armada at Gen Con, like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. But, yeah. John says, drop fleet or drop zone? Drop fleet. The new one that's technically not out in everybody's hands yet. One of the people from Valhalla, one of the people who was going to Valhalla, his name is Mike, and he's a Talon for Hawk, which is basically like their demo team. So he was coming over to Valhalla, so the guys from Hawk were like, hey, you need to take this along with you and teach people about it. And so I'm going to show you some pictures a little bit later on about it, and in the comments and the pictures, there were some people who were like, well, I haven't gotten my Kickstarter version yet, so they were a little peeved. But again, this guy is he's a demo team guy for them that was over at Valhalla, so that's why he was able to bring over early stuff. But from what I understand, they are on the way soon to. From what I understand, they're going to be shipping very soon to Kickstarter people. So yeah, I got to play Drop Fleet, which is the more spaceshipy version, as opposed to Drop Zone, which is the ground-based one. So it was kind of interesting. Yeah, it was cool. Have you tried using the Terminator rules for Lost Patrol? Oh, that was to somebody else. Lost Patrol. Oh, that's the one with the Space Marine Scouts. Yeah. Let's hear. Gummy Nerds. I enjoy the models that objectify women. I mean, that's why they're here. I'm not a big fan. Let's see here. Gloomdready. Hey Adam, hope you had a great time at Valhalla. Not sure how long I can watch, but I'll hang around for a bit. That's good to hear. Yeah, I did have a good time. It was pretty cool, and I'm gonna, like I said, in a little bit, I'm gonna show off some pictures and stuff like that. The Imperial Guard in Space Marine was a lieutenant. Yeah, I think you're right. She was a lieutenant. She was cool. I liked her a lot. I searched a while ago on internet shop with minis and saw there was a Warhammer 40k and 30k. Is there any difference? Yes, from what I understand. So the rules are, and I have not played 30k, so I'm kind of just going by a little bit what I know. Those of you who've played can let me know if I'm saying it wrong. The 30k rules, obviously it's 10,000 years previous to what the 40k rules are. So it's predominantly about the Horus Heresy and the fight. So when you're playing 30k, it's pretty much Space Marine on Space Marine action. There's generally not a lot of other races that you play with, from what I understand. I mean, honestly, in 30,000, you know, in the 31st millennia, the Tau were still running around in loincloths, you know, throwing sticks at each other, from what I understand. So, yeah, that's kind of the way that works. So there's not any Tau, really, and there's a lot of different stuff, but it's the rules are a bit different, but not too different that they're weird or, you know, confusing. The models are, like, other than that one plastic kit in the Horus Heresy box that you can get, everything else is going to have to come from Forge World, from what I understand, so it can tend to be a bit more expensive, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. Lord Ashen White says, Warhammer 40k has more factions and is set 10 millennia after 30k, which is the easy answer, true. So if you're like me and you're sometimes annoyed by the trickery that your friends who play Xenos can kind of throw at you, then 30k is maybe for you, because then everybody is, for the most part, generally a Space Marine. You know, I mean, granted, there's Chaos Space Marines, because that's what the whole heresy is about, is, you know, the kind of rise of chaos and stuff like that. Greg T. Dude says, have really gotten into Drop Zone Commander recently and love it. I've got big hopes for Drop Fleet Commander too. I thought it was cool. You know, it's basically Michael. He kind of explained it. It's like not as much spaceship combat as it's a little bit more almost like. I mean, it is spaceship combat, but the play style is a little bit almost like submarine combat. When you do specific things with your ships, like if like one faction has shields, if they raise shields, now everybody can kind of shoot at them because you have a scan range of your weapons, or you have a range of your weapons, and then you have a scan range of your ship, and that's the max distance that you can get. But if somebody does something, you know, somebody like an opponent, if they do something that basically creates a lot of energy balloon or a lot of energy signal, it is now much easier for you to target them. So when they raise shields, all of a sudden there's like a beacon now on your sensors. It's like, oh hey, there's a bunch of energy over there, so now you can target easier. But if they run real quiet, it's much more difficult for you to hit them, or if you can even fire at them at all. So it's an interesting system that way. And there are levels, you know, you can be in high orbit, low orbit, atmosphere, because a big portion of the whole thing, Drop Fleet, is that you're trying to get troops on the ground, which at that point then turns into Drop Zone Commander. If you wanted to play on a different board, you could be like, okay, we're going to do here, and then you go to a different board and play Drop Zone Commander, and then, you know, if you wanted to link them together that way, I suppose. But yeah, and the ships are really cool too. Like, especially I only saw the ones that come in the starter, which are all plastic, but they're nice ships. So, are you interested in playing Gorchos? And I bought it and it's a lot of fun. Better to get newbies playing. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen the models as well, and they're cool. I don't know. I should watch a bat rep about the game so I know a little bit more about it though. Has anyone seen Bolt Action's Kelly's Heroes models? Does anyone know where I could get Kelly's Heroes models, but in the big scale? I have not seen a big scale like for that. I've seen 28mm scale, which is the ones from Bolt Action and Warlord, but I haven't seen anything bigger than that. No. Uncharted Seas was the fantasy set. It is now discontinued. I picked up the Fleet Action set, which is a smaller naval battle, but we'll eventually pick up the full starter set. I'll post pictures on the Facebook page. Cool, Patrick. Let's see here. Gene Slayer cult releases great conversion fodder. It'd be really easy to make a chaos cult using them. Yeah, I think you could do some really interesting stuff with like, especially if it was more like, I guess, Zinch, you know what I mean? So they were like more, you know, mutated and stuff like that. You could do some really cool conversions with that. I love doing conversions, so yeah, that's. I mean, I have really no interest in playing Gene Stealer cults at all because I'm not really playing 40k. But I've looked at a bunch of the models and I'm like, oh, they'd be fun to paint though. So I don't know. I've got a lot of stuff in the basement right now that would be fun to paint. So I don't know that I need to add to that. But so yeah. Let's see here. 30k is really well balanced and more tactical based. I've heard that, actually, that it is more balanced just because everybody's basically a Space Marine for the most part. So yeah, that's kind of an interest to me. I think would be kind of cool. Let's see. What's the best way to hide how expensive the hobby is from people? That's a good question. I mean, I guess it's depending on who you're hiding it from, If you're hiding it from your wife or girlfriend, that's one thing. If you're just hiding it from people like you work with or whatever, you could just be like, well, just don't tell them, And, there are certainly ways too, obviously, like with eBay and things like that, where the hobby doesn't have to be too expensive. And you could also just, like, I don't necessarily do this very well, but there are also people who are very disciplined about, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to paint this, and then once this is done, then I will buy another kit. And, as opposed to people like myself who have a tendency to buy a lot of kits with the plan that someday they're going to paint all of them. So there's that too. Submarine combat sounds great, says Greg T. Dude. It sounds a bit like Kirk and Khan's ship battle in Star Trek 2. Ooh, that's a good analogy, yeah. It is a little bit like that. I mean, you're not in like a, whatever you call it, you're not like in a big dust cloud, nebula or whatever. But it is played, you obviously see where everything is because they're all on the board. You just can't target certain things if they're being quiet, unless you get into a certain range where at that point now it's just, I guess you're looking out the window going, well, they're over there, and then you can fire. But if they start doing stuff that like changes, like if they make a change in from low orbit to high orbit or whatever, that kind of stuff, it causes these energy spikes that make it easier for people to like lock on their sensors and things. And you have a little, on the base there's a little dial that shows how much energy you're currently kind of giving off to some degree, so you can kind of track it that way. The map is interesting too. You'll see some in the pictures later. But you're not just like, it's not like a normal just plain old space map. It's like these combats are predominantly all happening orbiting planets, so you just basically see like orbital pictures of planetscape, and then that's what the map is. It's just a top-down picture of like whatever planet from like way up high, satellite level, and it's kind of interesting that way to see it. So yeah. Kevin asks, I wonder if Drop Bear Commander would be successful. That's a very good question. In Australia, yes. The rest of the world, maybe not as much. So, but if someone could actually command drop bears, that person could probably take over a pretty good-sized continent. So that's important. Let's see here. Currently converting the Goliath truck for my orcs. Well, I mean, honestly, nearly anything can be converted for orcs, so that's a pretty good idea. Let's see here. Joshua says, Adam, my hope is Necromunda will make a return, and then the Genestealer cult will be really awesomely useful. Ooh, that would be pretty cool too, yeah. Bringing a Genestealer cult into Necromunda, yeah. I think that after Blood Bowl, it's either going to be like Epic is the next specialist game, or maybe Mordheim. So yeah, I don't know if it might be a while before Necromunda. It'd be cool if Necromunda was the next one, just because, like really Blood Bowl is fantasy based. So if they went for Mordheim, that one's also fantasy based, then you'd have two fantasy based ones in a row. So I'm wondering if they're going to alternate back and forth between fantasy and sci-fi. So if they did, it's either going to be after Blood Bowl, it's going to be Epic, or it's going to be the other one, Necromunda, which would be kind of cool too. Let's see here. Uncle Adam, could you tell my girlfriend Betty that it is totally normal for a grown man to like to fall asleep listening to your voice? Sure. Yeah, that seems totally normal, I figure. To be fair, I have talked to people that I think I make sleepy when I talk. Like, not everybody, but there are some people that I talk to that maybe just their reaction to my voice. And it's not like I'm just trying to bore them. It's like they asked me a question. I just want to be clear on this. They asked me the question, and then I will start talking to them, and then I will see their eyes kind of get a little heavy. And so then I try to back off because I don't want them to fall asleep, there at the lunch table or whatever. So, if it gets you more sleep and it makes you feel better, then hey, totally go with it. Tell Betty that that's totally fine. J.C. Lander says, you mentioned Space Hulk. With the latest edition, they also release tiles for Deathwing and Wolf Lords. Oh, that's kind of cool. Or rules. No, not tiles. Tools. Rules. Release rules for Deathwing and Wolf Lords. That'd be cool, because then you could just swap, I figure, the models in, that you've already got, throw them in there. That makes sense. And it's good that they're doing that, because they didn't, like I said, back in the old days, you bought Space Hulk, and then they released 2 other boxes that were like half the Space Hulk box is long and deep and whatever. And then these other boxes were square, so they were like half the length, but they were still the same depth and everything. And there was Deathwing and there was Gene Stealer, and they were both add-ons, so you could modify the game. And it came with extra models to some degree, and extra tiles, and then rules, and all kinds of stuff like that. So, but they haven't done much other than that, other than, from what I understand, maybe some PDF kind of download stuff or whatever, which is cool. I'm glad they're doing that, but yeah. Worked late, so tonight you're streaming to my car dash. Good evening from Dubai. Wow. I don't know if I've ever been on anyone's streaming to anyone's car dashboard before. That's pretty cool. I'm assuming it's probably hot over there in Dubai, Tim. So, you know, hopefully you've got air conditioning. I recently found some love for Age of Sigmar, but I'm really annoyed by those Sigma Marines. I simply can't freaking win against them. How to beat them with my vampires? That's a good question. I haven't had to play against any actual Sigmar, Forces of Sigmar, whatever, Stormcast. I haven't had to play against any yet. Yesterday when I stopped into the shop to pick up Lion Rampant that I had ordered, there were two guys that were playing Sigmar, and so then I sort of sat there and talked to them for a bit. And one was playing mostly Chaos, and the other one was playing Stormcast. And I think Stormcast was winning. Now, I see battle reports online all the time that's not necessarily that they don't win every game, but against vampires, I think that kind of stuff, if you're really concerned about trying to win, then it's getting into like some really strong synergy. I also find that range attack is really important in Age of Sigmar, so trying to find models in your line that can do range is really good. Like for my Chaos guys, I don't have much that can do range. I did just recently pick up Ungor Raiders for the Beastmen, and they've got bows, so I'm going to build them that way, because otherwise I've got almost, other than a little bit of Skaven stuff, I've got almost no range attack. Range attack in that game is important because you can use range attack even when you're in hand-to-hand. So it's almost like you get two attacks, because you get to attack in the shooting phase and you also get to attack in the combat phase, whereas like in older rules, once you were in hand-to-hand, there's no more shooting. So then you kind of got swamped really quickly. So yeah, it's interesting, but that's probably... I would definitely look into more range attack, because the more hurt you can put on them before they get to you is probably important. Let's see here. I did a commission once, Gloom. Took all the fun out of it for me. I must have missed what Dreddy said. Commissions, for me, like people have asked, which astounds me sometimes because I don't think my painting's that good. But they're like, oh, would you, I paint slowly, and I paint for relaxation, and I think painting for other people, for me, would be difficult, frankly. So, yeah, I think that would be kind of difficult. Let's see here. Joshua says, Epic is the favored choice at the moment. I doubt Mordheim will make its return due to its direct ties to Warhammer Fantasy Battles. An AOS version of Mordheim might work. Yeah, that's potential. I mean, I swear I'd heard that they were going to bring back Mordheim with this launch. I mean, it's a ways off. If they skipped Mordheim and just did Necromunda, that wouldn't bother me a ton, frankly, because I have Frostgrave, and I think Frostgrave is just kind of a slightly better version of Mordheim, at least as the rules are concerned. So, yeah. Hinter Froggen, I am backing the guy up, falling asleep to your voice. It's because you have a dark but very calm voice. It's the perfect uncle voice for a lullaby. That's maybe a little spooky, but if you mean it completely without guile, then I appreciate it. Otherwise, it can be kind of, but if it helps you get to sleep, all the better. That's cool. Let's see here. I was in the Games Workshop store last week, and they wouldn't say in words, but it looks to be a November release for Blood Bowl. I get how did they say it, I guess? Like interpretive dance? Did they write it down and slide the piece of paper over to you? I hope. It's something like that. I'm really hoping for the interpretive dance, actually. But, yeah, from what I've been hearing, it's like late 2016, early 2017, if there's problems. So, yeah, I'm hoping it's right before Christmas, too. That'd be kind of cool. Because I'd like to get painting on them, From what I understand, they're supposed to come with, what do you call those, little water slide decals, so you can put the numbers on them. I'm not going to do that for orcs. Absolutely. I'm going to freehand the numbers onto my orcs, because orcs would freehand everything, in my opinion. So, and yeah, I'm sure that the numbers that they put on there are going to look freehanded, but I'm just not going to... I can't put water slide decals on anything except for like flat tanks and stuff like that. I'm just not good at it. So with my human guys who should have technically nicer looking numbers, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. I don't know. I'll give it an attempt. Maybe if push comes to shove, I can potentially pay Sam to freehand the numbers on there. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm looking for that. Let's see here. I've got to just do a little bit of work there. Okay, that's cool. Adam, have you seen the new technical paints from GW, Snow in a Bottle, after so many years of baking soda? No, I haven't seen the Snow in a Bottle. I should see how that works out. I've never done any actual snow. Like, I use baking soda all the time, but I use it much differently than most people do, because I prime and paint over the top of it, and I just use it as a surface and not as snow. A lot of people have used it as snow in the past. From what I understand, sometimes it can turn a little yellow, though, over time. But I'd like to test out their stuff and see what it looks like. Let's see here. Joshua, I can find rules, but in Poland there aren't many shops with miniatures. Most people just play Magic the Gathering. So it's hard to get into the hobby. I understand that that's the case in Brazil, too. I've talked to a couple different people from Brazil who said that there's maybe 1 or 2 game distributors for the entire country, which is humongous, and they just don't do any kind of miniatures. So it's very difficult to get miniatures over in certain countries, and that is a bummer to me. So Josh McCarthy says, speaking of your voice, my 3-year-old loves it. Whenever I watch your videos, she crawls up next to me and watches for a few minutes. Maybe it's the beard. Maybe she's, entranced by the beard. But, I'm glad that she enjoys it. Let's see here. Played my first game of Kill Team yesterday. Actually, first game of 40k ever. Oh, good. My orcs got completely trashed on the second round. Who were you playing against, Peter Pan? Was it Eldar? Because that sounds like an Eldar thing to me, frankly. I haven't checked out the new Kill Team. I bought the electronic version of Kill Team from, I don't know how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Right when they first started doing ebooks, on Apple Bookstore or whatever, iBook or whatever. So I have that, and I think I can just tell it to re-download, and it should be the new version. People have told me on the chat that that's the case. So I'm going to give it a try, take a look at it. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but I'm going to definitely read it and see what kind of changes there are. This new box that you can buy for Kill Team comes with the small little 7th edition rulebook, the little one, as opposed to the big honking one. And it comes with short rules about Kill Team that are modified. And then it comes with a small Space Marine force and a small Tau force. So that's cool. But it, I don't know. We'll see. I want to read the rules and take a look at it. I don't know that I'm going to get too much Kill Team happening in my local store or anything like that if I wanted to, but maybe if I wanted to. I don't know if I do yet. If I did, I've got the models at least, Lord knows. I could probably easily just put some stuff together and paint it, or heck, a lot of it's probably already half painted as it is if I just went with straight Space Marines, I guess. So yeah, but I do want to take a look at it because, like I said, I already do technically own it, I guess. The rules, that is. Douglas says, I know you're busy in October, but have you had any more thoughts on a Rec Age battle report? So next weekend, this is a good lead-in here, Douglas. So next weekend, when I'm off from this, because this is the every other Sunday show, next weekend I'm going to be at the local convention here in my hometown. I didn't fix that yet, did I? Which is the Northeastern Wisconsin Gamepalooza. So you've got right there, NEW, which is Northeastern Wisconsin Gamepalooza. And Matt from Rec Age, he's usually our moderator. He was here a little earlier. He's not currently moderating because he's on vacation, and it was nice of him to log in and say hello. But he's on vacation at a bed and breakfast with his significant other. And anyway, so but I'm going to see him next weekend, which I'm really looking forward to. And at that convention, the Northeastern Wisconsin Gamepalooza, NEW, Gamepalooza.com. So he's bringing up stuff for Rec Age. I'm bringing the board because he's coming up, and it's just, I live here and he doesn't, so it's easier for me to bring the terrain. Well, not the terrain, he's got his own terrain, but the board, he's not bringing a board, I'm bringing a board. So maybe we'll shoot something then and kind of do something there. We'll see how it goes. I don't know that it'll be a battle report per se. It may be more of a demo of this is how the game plays, which will sort of be like a battle report, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. Melanie Dawn. Adam, fairly sure the leaked internal memo that first listed the games that Specialist Game was to reproduce, almost positive Mordheim was not on that list. Oh. Well, Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I'd seen something about Mordheim. Most people that I know around here are more interested in Mordheim than Necromunda. I mean, Blood Bowl has still got a huge following, which is great. And it's a total no-brainer for them to do that. Yeah, I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. Well, this is interesting. Can you guys hear me? You know, I wonder, with the sound thing, no? This is the problem. Now I have figured it out. Okay, hang on. I just figured something out. The reason that I'm getting that hum is because this other webcam over here is, that other webcam is the microphone currently, not, that's weird. Okay, now let me see if I can figure out how to fix that. Settings. I apologize, everybody, but I figured out, I think, what's going on. Now I just have to figure out how to fix it. Sources, audio devices, Yeti. That's what I want. Does that sound any better? Yeah, so the problem was that the this mic, the one that I normally talk into, which is the big Yeti here, YouTube defaulted to my webcam for some reason, which was not helpful. Did that annoying sound go away, everybody? Are there two of them now? Son of a gun. All right. Let me figure out how to fix this issue. Okay. Just going through and turning off the other mic, and then that will help. Is that helping at all? Is it still there? Still both mics are active, huh? God dang it. Okay, I'm trying to figure out here. Oh, see, now I've got that going on, which I didn't want. That's what I want. Sounded good there. Okay. There. Yeah. So now I have to figure out how to make it not do that in the future. So, the secondary mic, which is normally the one that points down at the stuff that I show over here, that one, the mic was hot, and that's why. That's what was causing the problem. Before where there was that hum, it was that. So now I know. And again, it's because I had just before the show, I had to update to the new version of XSplit. So that's why you should always update your software not 5 minutes before your live show. Just FYI. We got the echo back again? Seriously? What's going on here? God, friggin'. All right, sources. How do I turn off in this friggin' program? I just want you. No, I've got two of them, which I did not want that either. So we're going to remove you, and we're going to remove you, and remove you. Just going through all the different areas here and trying to turn these off. I don't know if this is going to work or not. How did I didn't do anything. I didn't change anything. How are both mics on? That one's not on. All right. I don't know how to make it stop. Yeah, that one is. Well, no, I do know a way to make it stop. Just a second, everybody. I'm just going to unplug it. If I can figure out which board it is. There we go. I do need a technical difficulties, a little thing to pop up there. So yeah. Oh, sure, Josh. Unplug the second cam. Yes, that's what I just did. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We've got to play, Josh and I need to play Planet Side 2 soon. Okay. So I think that we've got it fixed. I'm using Windows 10. So right, right there. So I'll figure it out. It cannot be still acting. I've unplugged the camera. Really? How is that even possible? Hang on. No, it's unplugged. I know it's unplugged. I don't know how it could be echoing unless the other one is deciding to echo. I can't figure out what we'll be doing. God bless America. All right. Yeah, it doesn't show there being any other. I can get rid of the webcam, but I don't think that's going to work. Camera pointing at your face has an echo. Only when that cam is active. So if I go here, then we have no echo, is what you're saying. Hiss is gone, echo is on. Okay. I do not have speakers on, so it's not that at all. I'm pretty sure I'm not saying everything twice either. I don't think that the PC has its own mic because it's a normal desktop PC. There's no sound to my computer. So did that help? Me turning off the no echo. Okay, so for some reason this is spectacular. Okay. Nope, I do not have the sound turned up on my feed. I don't even have any speakers plugged into this except for headphones. They're over there, so I can't hear it. Okay, so that's spectacular. What we're going to do is, well, maybe we'll just, no face, good audio. Yeah, so it's something to do with this camera, and so I need to figure out how to make it not be an audio setting. So we'll go from there. But what I'm going to try to do now, real quick, is I'm going to be very quiet, and I'm going to go over to the thing where I show the pictures. And I'm going to take, I had a little picture-in-picture over there that I'm going to take off. So just give me a sec here. Okay, so is there any echo? Let me know if there's some echo. My speakers are not on. Okay, so there's no echo in this view. That's because I turned off the picture with my face in it. So I'll have to figure that out later, and we'll just have to muddle on for now. Okay. So, Douglas, that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to do the slideshow for now, and I'm going to show you my pictures from Valhalla, which was the plan. All right, so this was, okay, so Valhalla is in Heber City, Utah, which is about an hour and 20 minutes by bus outside of Salt Lake City to the east, I believe. Very, very, very pretty area. There's this huge resort called the Timber Moose Resort. If you go to, I believe, timbermoose.com, you can see probably aerial pictures and lots better inside pictures than I took, but there won't be any people in them, so you'll get that. All right, so that's the trick. This is a shot from inside the kind of like, so you see that pool table there. Over to the right of that there was a bar area. Over to the left you got those couches, and then there was a big huge giant screen TV and a fireplace and stuff like that. But out that window there was this patio, and there was this amazing view of the valley that we were in. It was really pretty spectacular. Living in Wisconsin, I don't get to see mountains and junk like that too much around here. It's pretty flat. So seeing even decent-sized hills like that, there are also, and I don't know if I've got a shot of them here or not. I do have another shot on my good camera. These were all basically just Instagram camera phone pictures, but I do have a couple of good pictures of, like, off in the distance there were like actual, like, full-blown snow-capped big, really tall mountains, which were cool, which again I don't ever see around Wisconsin, so for me that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So yeah, I would hang out in this room quite frequently, and then like I said, I was answering comments. This was one of the first days of the thing, I think on Tuesday. We got meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. There's going to be some pictures of that later on. Let's see, what's the next photo here? Okay, so this is upstairs on the 3rd floor, because we were sleeping, no, 2nd floor technically. Most of us bunked in the basement, and they were nice. Like, some people had private rooms. They paid a lot more to the Kickstarter. So let me back up a little bit about Valhalla. Originally, Valhalla was started by Blue Table Painting, because they're based out of Utah, and it was a gamers retreat, and they did a couple a year, I think. Well, a couple of years ago, they stopped doing it, and Wargamer Girl, if you guys are interested in War Machine, she's also a YouTuber, Wargamer Girl. Her name is Miranda, and she and her husband basically kind of picked up the mantle for Valhalla and did a Kickstarter to get this all set up, so that they knew that they had actual interest and people paid, and so you could get a room where you were going to be sleeping in a what do you call it, like bunk beds, or you could go all the way up to fancy, like you've got your own bathroom and your own ambulance just went by. You've got your own bathroom and your own private room and all that stuff, and that's when you were paying around anywhere from $1,500 up. So so that was most of those rooms were down kind of in the basement. There was a pool on the 1st floor. There was a hot tub. That's where and then the food was in that room that I kind of showed you off of that room with the pool table and all that stuff. But it's about a 25,000 square foot facility. It's humongous and all wood and gorgeous like this. So here you see the what do you call it? So this is the gaming room up on the 2nd floor. And it was a room that was probably, I don't know, 80 by 80 roughly, maybe a little bit smaller than that. And most of that, the tables and the terrain and all the stuff that were brought in, they were brought in for the most part by Blue Table Painting. It's not that Sean's not involved with it anymore, he's just not running it anymore, but since he lives right there, he worked with Miranda and her husband to bring a lot of the terrain so that they didn't have to try to come up with all this stuff, and it was a lot of really nice terrain. Sean also brought a bunch of, he brought some Age of Sigmar army stuff, he brought some War Machine army stuff, so like if you wanted to get in the game but didn't have like a force, you could kind of use his stuff, which was really cool. It was like basically like studio, what do you call it, studio stuff, so yeah. All right, Douglas asks, how many people were there? Let me see, they were around 40 or so, roughly, from what I understand, so that was pretty cool. Let's see here. All right, so again, this is the upstairs room. There was gaming going on in here pretty much 24 hours a day. Like, nothing was ever closed, If it was 3 o'clock in the morning and you went into the room that all the food was generally in, like where we had our meals, there was always at least like some like dried fruit and nuts and things like that. And you can get a soda or whatever. So all that stuff's included. It was really nice, actually. And my goodness, the woman who was the caterer, the chef, she was super good. Yeah. If you notice that guy in the green shirt over there, that guy is Codex Dan. He used to be on Mini Wargaming. He was Mini Wargaming Dan. Now he's Codex Dan. He's got his own channel. Mostly deals with War Machine. And this is maybe his 3rd Valhalla, I think. And by the end of this week, he let us know that he still, to this day, has not lost a game yet at Valhalla. So that's a pretty good, that's a pretty good record. All right, let's see here. There's Codex Dan right there on the right. This is a game of, I believe, oh no, this was 40K. He was playing as orcs versus, I think, Emperor's Children, I believe. And it was really interesting, really cool painted Emperor's Children force, actually. There's going to be a picture of part of it later on, I think, too. That guy in the middle with the corn sweatshirt, he had a pretty sweet corn sweatshirt. That was Jeremy, and I don't remember the name of his channel, but he does have a channel. Just kind of starting out. So yeah, there's a lot of games that happen like this. It was all pickup games. This was not like a planned thing. There was no tournaments. There was no schedule. It was pretty much play what you like whenever you want, and you've got really technically 3 days to do it. I mean, like, we got there Monday. We didn't really finally actually get into the place until around 5, so it was like kind of before dinner. And then on Friday when we left at like 10 in the morning on the bus back to the airport and stuff. So the first day and the last day, you don't get full days, obviously, but the rest of it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, completely full days, which is great. I'm just checking that chat here. Let's see here. Yeah, you're right, Torch. Most game conventions have crap food, but this is a retreat, not a convention, and it's, man, super, super really good food. Yeah, it was really good. Let's see, what's the next picture? Okay, so this was a really cool table. Over on the left, that guy's name is Michael. He's the guy who is the Talon for Hawk Wargaming. He's like a demo team guy. He was the guy from England that came over. We had two guys from Germany. He came from England. There was actually that guy in the blue shirt, kind of right by Miranda there. His name is Bacon, and he came from Japan. I mean, he's an American guy, but he's stationed in Japan. So there was some people who came some really long distances to go to this thing, which was really cool. And then there's Jeremy again with the sweatshirt, and then there's Miranda over there on the right. They were playing War Machine on this super cool table, which was like all these crazy ruined like fantasy buildings. Later on, there's going to be a picture where late on Thursday night, a bunch of people, like 8 people, started a Mordheim game on this table, which went really, really, really... Most of the people on Friday morning when it was time to leave had gotten somewhere around an hour of sleep. I knew I had to drive after I flew back to Chicago, and I had to drive for 3 hours, so I had planned ahead, as I am old, and gotten a decent amount of sleep, like nearly 6 hours, I bet. So, you know, I did not get to play a long game of Mordheim, but that's what happens. So let's see here. Gloomdready says, I have followed every Valhalla through Sean's channel in the Mini Wargaming Vault. It always looked like a great time, and Dan is still one of my favorite people, even though he rarely does stuff on YouTube now. He keeps talking about how he's going to start doing more stuff on YouTube, but he hasn't really done as much as he could. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. There were, he's a lot of fun. There was, I sat in on a battle report, and then you'll see some pictures of it later on, I think. But I sat in on a battle report on Thursday that was him and Miranda playing 40K against Mini Wargaming Dave and Mini Wargaming Quirk. Not in the main room because it would have been too loud for... They were filming a bat rep for it, a banter bat rep. So we did it instead in this other game room that had like air hockey and a ping pong table, and we played on the ping pong table, but with some amazing looking terrain, which I hope you'll see that later. So yeah. What have we got next? So there's Miranda and Bacon again, and a little bit of a closer view of the table. It was amazing to watch, like to be up in this game room and then just look out over the mountains and the pine trees and the squirrels and the wildebeests and whatever and all that stuff and the nature outside. That was really cool. There was some unnature inside the building, taxidermy, sadly. I'll show you a picture later on, but yeah. Like in this room, there was like a big, I don't know, like a mountain lion or something way up high, which I didn't get a picture of. But you know, it's a lodge. That's kind of, I guess, how many people will usually decorate them. But otherwise, it was a gorgeous, gorgeous place. So this was lunch on, I don't know, maybe Tuesday, I think. That guy over on the right with the arm tattoo, and you can't quite tell, but his hair's kind of braided down the back, kind of Viking-like. His name is Rob, and he also works for Mini Wargaming, predominantly behind the scenes. He's an editor, videographer, filmmaker type guy, and he builds a lot of their sets, and he also does a lot of their editing and all kinds of other stuff, and he's a really nice guy. Hung out quite a bit with him on Wednesday because I ran a camera for behind the scenes shooting for one of the reasons also that Mini Wargaming guys were here was because they wanted... Dave from Mini Wargaming has been doing this series of movies recently called The Rangers, and he was going to film a short for that series at Valhalla because there's just lots of nature and junk outside, so we could do that. So we spent a good portion of the day outside on Wednesday. So it was him versus Miranda. They were having that was part of the short film. And she had a costume, and he had a costume, the whole deal. They did some fighting and stuff. It was pretty cool. And then Quirk was running sound, Rob was running camera, and I was running behind-the-scenes camera because I've done that before for other features and stuff. So it's cool. So yeah, but Rob's super nice guy. We were making mini pizzas on this day. So you got the pita bread and the sauce and all kinds of toppings and stuff. And like I said, everything that we ate that entire weekend, or that entire week, was spectacular. It was really, really good. Let's see, what have we got next? So here is Drop Fleet Commander.
Like I said, it's like you're playing on top of an aerial photo, sort of above the planet. These are, I believe, PHR ships, which to me look like fancy space liners to take, vacationers to Floston Paradise or whatever. I mean, they don't look like warships as much to me. The other ships did more, but these guys, I don't know, I just like these ships. Now, this ship, admittedly, right here in the front, was called Creeping Death, which is obviously not a ship you're going to get on to go to, a paradise world. I'd hope, if you're going to, but it was a cool, it was a kind of a cool game. Like I said, it was very kind of submarine, kind of combat to some degree. The bases you can see there on there, they kind of twist. If you guys have ever played any kind of like hero clicks before, they don't click, but they do have like little colors and symbols underneath there to let you know, like, how high up you are, whether you're in low orbit, high orbit, atmosphere, whether you've been giving off these different energy spikes, which makes it easier for other guys to target you and stuff like that. So that's how you keep track of it, rather than, say, tokens or whatever. That part, in my mind, was maybe the kludgiest part, because it was just colors and like, it doesn't, like, yellow to me doesn't mean low orbit, you know what I mean? Or red doesn't mean, so yeah, like trying to figure out what the colors mean in relation, there's not a kind of a usability case there where you can go, well, of course, oh yeah, like white, I believe, was atmospheric, so the only thing I was thinking of, like, well, once you're in the atmosphere, there are clouds, and clouds are white, so boom, white is atmospheric. But the rest of them, to me, the colors kind of didn't make exactly sense. Like, whether you had energy spikes you were giving off, that made sense, which is the other side of the dial there. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that way. So I thought that the game was interesting. I'm not super into spaceship games, but yeah, I enjoyed it. So, and the models look astounding. From what a lot of people talked about, it was a bit like Battlefleet Gothic, or they had memories of playing it like Battlefleet Gothic and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's interesting. Let's see here. Next image. This is one of those taxidermies I was talking about. He's, I don't know, it was some sort of smaller cat. Someone, I think, on Facebook said that maybe that he should have a little top hat or something, but I think that's probably mean to the poor guy. So yeah, there was, like, you had there was a moose head somewhere else up on the wall and that kind of stuff, which is, I don't know, it's not exactly my thing, but that's just a little bit. You can see more of the wood and the tile and stuff. Like, that was way off in the corner on the left there. That's like the drinks table where, like, there was water and there was like a different type of juice nearly every day. There was coffee. There was a bucket with different cans of soda on ice and things like that. That's where you went. And so if you kept going left in that picture, that's where all the food was before, with the mini pizzas and all that stuff in that picture. So, like I mentioned a bit earlier in the cast, when I wanted to sort of get away or whatever, I would just go off and read the Conflict 47 rules. And this was, I think, Wednesday morning maybe, where I read the rules and had my breakfast. Generally, though, during most of the times when we would all kind of eat together, I sat at tables with people that sometimes I knew, like Miranda or Mini Wargaming Dave or Quirk or those people, or I'd sit with players and people that I didn't know, and I learned about like what they do and what kind of games they like and all kinds of stuff, and we had conversations, and it was really great. That was that kind of communal, like everybody sort of eating together, meeting different people, because it wasn't like assigned seating or anything like that. It was just basically sit down where you want to sit down and say, hey, is this space taken, and then you just go from there. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. You got to meet a lot of people, even people you didn't play against or anything along those lines, because you were sitting together, eating together, hanging out, whatever. Yeah, so it was a really great. I mean, it's not a convention, because conventions are usually hundreds to thousands of people. This is 40-ish people at this retreat, but it was a lot of fun. What's the next picture? Okay, so this is on Wednesday. We shot, like I said, Dave. You can kind of see Dave there off under the sticks. He has been doing this series of movies that you can see on Mini Wargaming called The Rangers, and it's like a fantasy movie series, and he's done some short ones and some like feature-length ones back and forth. This one that they were filming while we were here is going to be called The Rangers Ancient Order, and it's mainly just him and Miranda, Wargamer Girl. So she is playing a character who is nigh immortal, and he's out in the woods, and they have a conflict, and he's looking for a thing, and she's trying to not get in. So there's some fighting and combat and stuff. This was after she's captured him, and it was the first stuff that we had shot. And then you see Rob over there on the right. He's shooting, the footage. Quirk, you can't really see him, but he's way in the back behind this big crazy bramble that we found, and he's running the audio back there with the big boom mic. And like I said, I was mainly just shooting behind the scenes, so that later on, once they release these things on the website, they can show a real behind the scenes footage of the making of that kind of stuff, which is fun. So yeah, it was cold. The whole time we were there, it was in about... There were days when it was maybe as high as the mid-50s Fahrenheit, and then it would drop down to like freezing. Like we would wake up in the morning and there would be ice on the deck, the patio area, and you'd slide around too much if you weren't paying attention. So there's that. Yeah. Let's see here. What do we got next? So this was a late-night Zombicide Black Plague game. Again, this was that pool table that you saw earlier. They covered it with the pool table cover so they could play games on it at one point. This is downstairs as opposed to the big gaming room upstairs. There's a bunch of people in that image. If you look up in the upper right corner, that's Miranda's husband, Tommy. Then there's Rob right below him. There's a guy named Roy. I don't know everybody else's name, and some people's faces I can't see. So, but yeah, there was a big... Earlier in the day, there was a big game of regular Zombicide that happened on this table too, that Codex Dan and Mini Wargaming Dave and a bunch of other people played in, and there was a lot of yelling and screaming. I mean, it's a cooperative game, but some people have different definitions of what cooperative mean, from what I understand. All right. So this is another shot of us out in the woods, and you can see Mini Wargaming with her outfit, you can see Wargamer Girl with her outfit, Dave with his outfit, and then Rob is in the background there shooting the other angle for this stuff. And like I said in the description, or on this particular one, we had to stop nearly, just seriously, minutes later because a blizzard started. Like, it started to like snow a little bit. We're like, oh, this is pretty. Oh, this is nice. And then it just started coming down to the point where basically the fellowship was broken, and we had to get back to the building, and we had to basically climb up a now snow-covered hill to get back there, which was hard with all of our stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if I think there's some pictures maybe of snow a little bit later on, but this was just before it all hit the fan, as it were. There was I think it was on Wednesday, there was a humongous battle. It was Orcs versus Tyranids. It was an Apocalypse 40K game, and I think it was something like, 15,000 points per side, potentially, that went a good portion, like 12 hours, like most of the day. It was a bunch of different people obviously playing, but the Orcs came from a bunch of different people that were there, and the Tyranids were predominantly all from Blue Table. Like, they went and picked up a bunch of them from their main studio or wherever, and then they were there, so that was really cool. Yeah, it was really it was cool to watch. It was a ton of models. I think the Orcs won. Actually, I don't remember. This was, I want to say, probably Thursday, and this was because you kind of hang out in these. There's like in the eating area. There's these booths, So yeah, so Dave and I were hanging out and talking about the shooting the previous day and trying to wake up because we'd both stayed up pretty late that night. There's a lot of that. You're not going to get. I mean, you can if you want to get a lot of sleep when you're at Valhalla, but there's also a lot of not getting a lot of sleep if you want to as well, because like I said, there's games running 24 hours if you want. Let's see here. So this is another one of those booths that you kind of eat in and all that stuff, and this is a bunch of people that were playing a board game, because there was not just miniatures games there. It was mostly miniatures. It was mostly wargaming, but there were some miniatures as well, or board games as well. People, that wanted to take a break from wargaming or whatever and go that direction. There was a couple over there on the right. That guy I think his name was Gary, and he brought his wife. She was pregnant, I think with their fourth. And then there was Aaron in the black shirt. He's got a channel called Cool Guys Nation, I believe, or Cool Guy Nation. Cool Guy or Cool Guys Nation, I'm not sure. And then the other guy next to him was a friend of his, whose name I think was Arun. It was like Aaron, but different. Or else someone was pulling my leg, I'm not sure which. and I can't quite identify the other two, but yeah, I think they were playing Seven Wonders. So I have thought about, and I've mentioned to my wife, like, well, if we were going to go back, maybe the both of us go, because she likes board games, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. Here's a shot of more of the Tyranids. This was either after the game was done and they were stacking them back up, or this was just before they deployed them. I'm not sure. I think it was after. But yeah, there is a ton, and it was a cool paint scheme too. I liked kind of the more bone and like red with a little bit of green here and there. That kind of makes the red pop a little bit more. So yeah, it was a lot of Tyranids, which was fun. Let's see here. What else have we got? All right, so oops, I lost my window. Come back. There we go. Okay, so let me see here. This was another game that I was watching a little bit later on. And it was, I think it was 30K, like Emperor's Children. I'm not sure exactly which, the purpley kind of army one. But then there was a Dark Mechanicum, basically, army. So it was they were using the normal Mechanicum rules. They just painted them to be kind of Chaos or Dark Mechanicum, which was really cool. There was a lot. Most of the people brought painted stuff. And I think it's because a lot of the people who were kind of veterans of this, this is maybe their second or third or fourth Valhalla, a lot of them, I think, were just original customers of Blue Table painting. So, like, I know that these Mechanicum guys, these came across with Michael, the English fellow, so this was his first. But he painted these all himself. But there are other people there who had armies that had been painted by Blue Table because they'd been fans of Blue Table for quite some time, which is how they originally found out about the original, Valhalla, which was cool. But yeah, just really cool paint jobs in a lot of these situations. A big crazy drop pod thingy. I forget what it's called, but it's a Chaos, I think, type. He had some regular ones, but he also had these big honking ones too, which I assume are probably Forge World, but I don't know that for sure. So, I mentioned that battle report, that banter bat rep that we filmed on Thursday. So, it was Dave and Quirk versus Dan here and Miranda. Dan and Miranda were running Orcs, and Dave and Quirk were running Chaos, mostly Nurgle. And we were playing on this crazy, on this ping pong table in this one room with this crazy cool desert terrain. And like, it went for a couple hours, then there was a break because Dan and Miranda needed to go out and do some more pickup shots for the short. Then there was dinner, then we came back and finished the rest of the filming. But Dan had come out, I was doing something, and Dan had come out and said, hey, you should come in and hang out and be in, check out this bat rep and stuff. So there was a lot of, Dan was using his own dice. He has these special custom dice called the Mark of Dave instead of the Mark of Chaos. So the 6 is this D with kind of like little chaos arrows sticking off of it. And that was the dice that everybody was using. And eventually Dan and Miranda were like, I think there's something wrong with these dice. We keep rolling low. And I happen to have my dice with me. So I said, well, I have some dice. So I pulled out my Tabletop Minions dice. And then that became a big thing and whatever. So if you do watch this banter bat rep whenever it does come out from Valhalla, you'll probably see me in it a bunch, and you'll see my dice as well. So that'll be fun. It was a hoot. It was fun to watch kind of behind the scenes too, to see how these things are filmed. At least the way that Dave does it. So yeah, it was a fun, albeit long time, but there were a lot of laughs. This is a close-up of kind of the terrain. It's like a printed mat, and also like it was just a bunch of really cool actual like modular terrain pieces that were super cool. And then this was a really cool painted, mostly Nurgle biker army. There was some rhinos, but it was mostly bikes, Nurgle bikes. It was just 1,000 points on 1,000 points because they just didn't have quite enough figures to be able to make a decent list that was closer to 1,500. Plus, they thought it would run shorter than if we did it that way, but as it turned out, it didn't run that short at all. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was pretty cool to see. I liked the lighting effects specifically on that Rhino, like the headlights. I thought it was a cool object source lighting kind of lesson. Which, if you're looking for object source lighting lessons, this week's video on Friday that dropped while I was gone, that was Sam teaching us about object source lighting, and that's a cool video. So if you're interested in object source lighting, learning more about it, you should check out with Sam. Okay. let's see here. Yeah, so there's a picture of Quark and Dan and some of the orcs and some of the cool terrain, and then a special guest star down there in the bottom, which is some of the Tabletop Minions dice that I had at Valhalla, and they got featured in the videos quite a bit because every once in a while they'd roll really well, and then Dan would Dave would focus in on them and then curse me, and then there were other times that they would roll poorly, and then he would applaud me because he was usually playing against those dice and didn't want them to win, which I understand. This was just a cool piece of terrain that I found when I was up kind of spooking around up in the big main game area. Like I said, they brought a ton. They brought a ton of terrain from Blue Tibble Painting, and I just thought this was really cool. So if you've seen the Arcane Ruins plastic terrain kit from Games Workshop that's for fantasy, what they did here in this situation was just to take like foam, and they just carved in spots where they could slide it in and glue it in there, so it looks like it's like, like carved into the side of this mountain. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then I just grabbed some of my models, these are some of my Chaos Warriors, and threw them up on there and just took some photos and stuff with the relatively natural light coming in from the really cool windows and stuff, and just took some shots. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just cool stuff. I took a bunch of video and pictures of certain terrain pieces just basically as a sort of as an inspiration for myself, so I can go forward and kind of do some of these cool pieces hopefully in the future. So yeah, that's cool. Here's that late night Thursday Mordheim game. This was, you can see Miranda there and a bunch of other people, and yeah, I think they had 8 players on this map, 8 different war bands playing. I want to say Codex Dan is in there somewhere too. I mean, not in one of those shots, but he was there playing. Yeah, so it was cool to see, like, on this board, which looks very Mordheim-y to begin with, and I think is what it was designed for. It was just, the thing is, playing 8 players, they were all like right next to each other, so like first turn, everyone's just shooting at the people who are adjacent to them, and that kind of hopefully speeds the game up a little bit. Let's see here. This was our breakfast on Friday morning. Like I said, everybody had been up late. There was a bunch of people in the hot tub. There were a lot of people doing stuff and whatever. Even the chef, she had been out hanging out in the hot tub for a long time. I think she mentioned that she got about 45 minutes sleep, but still pulled off some amazing stuff. These were banana nut muffins, and you had, what are those, bagels, and then there were these crazy like turnovers that were really good over on the right, and croissants and fresh fruit and Nutella way off there in the distance, and coffee and all the things you'd want for your trip back home to wherever you come from, I suppose. In my situation, I had to fly from Salt Lake City to O'Hare in Chicago, and then from there drive north for quite a while until I got to actually my house. Yeah, this was again the last morning in Valhalla. This is one of the several patios, and then it was a gorgeous day on the last day. That was the thing that was crazy. It's like the week leading up to Valhalla, it was in the 70s there, Fahrenheit, and then the week we got there, it was like in the 50s, except for like that one day when it blizzarded, and then like this next week upcoming, it's supposed to be almost back into the 70s again. So it was just kind of cooler for us while we were there, but it was fine because we were basically all inside. We're predominantly inside kids anyway, aren't we? So it worked out fine. And this was the bus ride back to Salt Lake from the place. And again, there were those big, snow-capped kind of misty mountains way off in the distance. It's just, like I said, I don't get to see that kind of stuff around here. So for me, it was just cool to see that kind of stuff. Everything's pretty flat in Wisconsin, but seeing those types of mountains for me was just cool. Just that was a cool part of the trip, just added on to everything else, which was awesome. I don't know if I have any more pictures here. Oh, yeah. So here's kind of a last picture. That top view there was a picture off the main deck, kind of out over the water. And then there's just a little pond kind of there, which had kind of partially dried up a little bit, but it's because it's getting close to winter. It's a very dry climate. I'm surprised. Coming from Wisconsin where it's quite humid, it's usually quite dry there when it's not snowing. But yeah, like I said, last day was a gorgeous day. That moose carving, that's actually the front door, and that's a relatively new thing. I guess it wasn't there last time there was Valhalla. It was a new addition, but it's amazing. It's just this gorgeous, humongous door. You can kind of see the lock and the handle over there on the left. And yeah, it's a really great carving. And then this is a further away picture of literally just some of the stuff that you can see, like those big windows. That's the gaming room up there, and then there's another tower that goes up that's even higher. It's just like a crow's nest is what they call it. But there's a lot more stuff that I couldn't get into frame. Like I was literally standing on, like from where that shot was taken above, I turned around 180 degrees and took that picture of the resort, and if I would have backed up anymore, I would have fallen off of a cliff down into that water and stuff, or mud at least. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as Valhalla is concerned. I'm a little concerned about going back to the camera because it's going to kick in the audio again. I need to figure out how to make it not do that, but I don't know that I want to do that now. So what I'm going to do instead is just go to this for now. So we'll see this, and I'll just keep talking for a bit so we don't get echo, and then I'll try to figure out what the problem is so that it's good in another 2 weeks. And I'm going to go back and look at the chat now. All right, so there we go. So yeah, that paint, the view was beautiful. It was astounding. I really, really liked it. Like I said, living in a relatively flat state, sometimes we see hills, but that's about it. Let's see. It looks like you guys have been talking about brushes a lot whilst I've been doing my thing. Don't buy super small detail brushes. You're better off working in your technique and just using the very point end of a standard detail brush. Tiny brushes hold no paint and are hard to use. I do find that to be true. I don't generally paint with tiny brushes. I paint with, sort of small brushes, and I find it works out pretty well. And brush soap is fantastic. I need to get better with using it. I don't use it as much as I ought, and I do want to do a video about it and talk about brush care, just because I have a lot of people asking me about it. Torch, you're welcome for sharing the pictures. I hope you guys got it. Those were basically all on my Instagram, and then they got put onto Twitter, and then I also got put into Facebook. So if you follow me in any of those places, you've probably seen a bunch of those pictures, but I just kind of wanted to give some background, more than I could just in the little 140 characters or whatever, description thing. So yeah. Jay Woodcock asks, any word on next year? Well, there will be a next year. I don't know what the dates are, but they're probably about roughly the same time. It's kind of between seasons when we're there, because it's not quite summer, but it's not yet winter skiing season, so that's why we're able to get in when we can, or that's when Miranda and her husband can get in, and set this all up when they can. This one was done with a Kickstarter, which was basically in this situation kind of like a what do you call it? It's like a pre-sale sort of a deal. The reason they did it as a Kickstarter is because if people weren't that interested and they only got like half the place filled, they wouldn't raise enough money to be able to actually rent the entire place. You can't just rent half the place, you know what I mean? So in that situation, that's why they did the Kickstarter. So if you watch Miranda's channel, which is Wargamer Girl on YouTube, or if you just pay attention to my channel, I'm sure that when next year's rolls around, I'll at least talk about it. I mean, I'm not 100% sure if I'll be able to go next year if I get invited. I may have work or something like that, but at the very least, I'll be sure to mention it for people that are interested in the Kickstarter. Like I said, you basically from Monday when you get there until Friday when you leave, you're completely covered food and a place to stay, and you've got obviously tons of games and fun stuff to do. So that really helps. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing people kind of see more about this whole thing. I'm going to be doing probably a video about it still with the stuff that I shot while I was there, and I'm sure some other people are already talking about it online besides me. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I think is pretty interesting about it. Let's see, what else have we got here? Road Rooster says the event looked like a blast. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Let's see. A lot of talk about brushes, which is cool. Let's see here. Long straight lines are a nightmare for me. They're kind of a nightmare for most people. Especially, I'm still not really particularly any good at freehanding, so. What's the strangest thing that happened during a game? That's a good question. There were a lot of odd rolls in that Banter Bat Rep I watched. I know in Drop Fleet Commander there was a chain. So like a lot of the ships when they blow up, they're spaceships and they've got fusion cores or dilithium crystals or something. And I don't know what the technology is technically behind a drop fleet, but it's there. Anyway, it's crazy because what happens is that a lot of times when you destroy a ship, it will blow up. Much like in 40K when you blow up a vehicle, and then you have to roll to see, well, how big is the radius and stuff like that. So there were a couple of times in that game, we had a decent amount of ships on the board. If they were close enough together, you could take out one ship, which would then blow up, and then take out another ship, or at least severely damage a ship. And if you were too close when you did it, well, you would sometimes take out your own ship. So we had a couple of weird chain reactions that happened at that time, and they were sort of fun. It's one of those deals where you have to be like, well, I need to be sort of close to hit, but I don't want to be too close because, it's like a D6 explosion area. So if you're within 6 inches, you could get caught in the blast. So, yeah, that's interesting. Andrew asks, was there any liquor or Utah? Well, there was liquor. I didn't bring any because I was flying and I was just like, I don't know. I thought about putting something in my luggage, but then I'm like, what if it breaks inside my luggage and then all my stuff smells like booze? So I didn't bring any myself. But there was... in Heber City, you could buy, like, there were some trips that were run down to Heber City, and some people did, there was some booze. So yeah, it's not like it's a dry state or even county, but yeah, there was some of that. So there was no problems with it being like nobody got like, well, one guy we did not see for an entire day because he got pretty hungover, evidently. So he pretty much laid low most of that day. But other than that, there were no other issues that I really saw. So that was good. ZPQ Kid says, do you do any X-Wing? Yeah, I do. I play some X-Wing. I don't play competitively. I played in a tournament once, and I didn't like it because I just generally don't like tournaments myself. But yeah, I do play mostly friendly games with friends, and I do enjoy it. I haven't bought any of the new waves of ships. I haven't really bought a new ship since like the Outrider, I want to say, maybe. So it's been a while, but I've been playing with the stuff I've got, and I've been enjoying it. So, how much terrain do you need for Age of Sigmar? Well, in the rules, the base rules, they'll tell you what you do is you roll for each quadrant. So like if you're playing on a 4x4 board, each 2-foot quadrant, you roll a die in each 2-foot quadrant, and then it will tell you how many pieces of terrain in the thing. Overall, if you rolled super high in every one, or whatever the number is, I think that like for a 4x4, you might need as high as 8 pieces of terrain, unless it's maybe even higher yet. But it's not a super terrain-heavy game, not like Infinity or Mordheim or a lot of skirmish games. It's designed to not need as much terrain, but it's also not as sparse on terrain as War Machine frequently is. So there's that. But yeah, let's see here. What else have we got? Do you like painting or gaming more? Ooh, that's a good question, actually. I enjoy both equally, but I'm not a competitive player and I'm not a display painter. So I like painting mainly for tabletop, but I still like to increase my ability and get my skill level up there. And I mostly, when I play, I like to play for fun because I'm not like it's a game. I think that you should be able to play for fun. That's kind of the point. So yeah, that's something that I generally do. Is I enjoy them equally. I'm not super duper into either. I'm not a display painter trying to win any awards, and I'm not a tournament player trying to win any game or win any tournaments, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of the trick. But I do enjoy them both. I have a tendency to obviously spend a lot more time painting just because it takes more time. But that's fine because I can do it at home by myself, and it's like a relaxing thing I can do. When you're going to game with somebody, either they need to come over to your place and play, or you need to go to their place or to a store or whatever, and you don't generally spend as much time, at least I don't spend as much time in any given week painting or playing versus painting. Vallejo matte varnish through an airbrush is nice. I've got some Vallejo matte varnish, and I've got a second, like, cheaper airbrush, and I've been meaning to try it out. I'm going to do it this winter. And I want to see how it works out, because if I could find a really good alternative to Tuster's Dull Coat that I don't have to worry about doing when it's too humid, or that if it's, I can't do it in the winter and stuff like that, that's really the way I want to go. So let's see here. I found varnish was much more important when the models are metal. Now that they are plastic, they don't weigh enough to cause damage when they fall or get knocked over. That's a good point, Joshua. Metal models just have more inertia when they get knocked over or something like that, and they'll then chip the paint off. Whereas a lot of plastic models, again, A, don't build up that much inertia as they're tipping over because they're so light, and B, if you use the right primer, especially if it's something that's designed to stick to plastic, it's much less likely to chip as well. But still, I always varnish my models just because sliding them in out of like foam cases can help to, and just even finger oils can eventually over time kind of modify the colors, so I always still use a varnish over the top. But is a 4x4 board good for Age of Sigmar, or should I make a bigger 6x4? It says, I think I don't remember if it says it in the main 4-page rules or if it says it in the General's Handbook. They'll tell you, like, for point values, definitely. Like, if you're going to play like a 2,500 point game, they say it's probably better to play on a 4x6. But anything under that, you can get away with, I think, 4x4. I almost always play it on a 4x4. I generally actually don't play 4x6 type games anymore, but the only one I'd ever play anymore these days is, like, if I was to get back into 40K and start playing, like, full-blown games that weren't just, like, Kill Team or something like that. But for, Frostgrave you generally play on a 3x3. It's just nice because I have a 4x4 or a 4x6 table, but now I've got, like, I throw a 4x4 mat on there, and then there's this, like, 2 foot by 4 foot area that we can keep all of our stuff on, which is sort of nice. Because otherwise, when you play a full 4x6 game on a 4x6 table, then you have to figure out where to put all your junk, and you usually have, like, I don't know, side tables or card tables, and that can become problematic. Sealer Frost sounds like a B-list villain. No, that's true. He does sound like that. Is this the stream? This is the first time I wrote this, but how does Drop Fleet compare to BFF or Armada? I'm assuming you mean BFG for Battlefleet Gothic. Drop Fleet, man, I haven't played Battlefleet Gothic in forever, and I think I only played once. So a lot of people at Valhalla said that it reminded them to some degree of Battlefleet Gothic. Armada is a very different game that I have played more. I have played that more recently, but that's a very different game than this. Armada is a very interesting system, and honestly, if I wasn't already playing 40 or X-wing and having a whole bunch of models and stuff like that, I would probably get a little bit more into Armada. But yeah, as far as comparison is concerned, Armada, like, in Armada there are little models for your X-wings, your fighters and stuff like that. In this game there are fighters and bombers, but there's no models for them. They're almost like just like another form of attack. If you are within 12 inches of your opponent when you sick some fighters or bombers on them, they automatically just fly out and attack, and then you do damage or whatever. But if you are longer than 12 inches when you launch them, then technically that model, it takes some time to get there, so you don't really like figure out how much damage you did and all that kind of stuff until the very end of the turn. But on your turn, if you fire fighters or bombers and against a target that's within 12 inches, they just automatically resolve, and it resolves right now. But if you fire them at stuff that's further away, it doesn't happen until the end of the turn, which in that situation may allow that ship to create havoc and stuff like that in between. But again, there's no real models. I guess there can be models you can use just like as a token to remind you that this is happening, but we weren't using them. We were just like, putting down something and saying, oh, remember there's, bombers heading towards that ship or whatever. So yeah, but there's not, like, it's not specific like you need to with the Armada. Let's see here. A plastic tote, bathroom exhaust fan, and dryer vent hose, and you're in business. I'm assuming you guys are talking about airbrush stuff. So yeah, I know that on Amazon there's a really nice little airbrush booth for $100 if you want to buy one. But otherwise, there are plenty of places online you can see to see where people have put them together and made them out of, like, household stuff, kind of like you're mentioning there, a plastic tote and all that jazz. And they work out really just as nice too. I generally don't use a spray hood thing because I paint downstairs in this little room underneath the stairs, kind of like where Harry Potter would sleep, and so I don't worry about the paint dust getting around too much. And there's not really any fumes because I'm using an air compressor, so that's not a concern. I still wear a mask to protect myself from the paint. You know, if I was doing it in the house someplace else, like in the living room or something, well then yeah, you definitely want to be able to figure out a way to suck up all that paint dust. But in a little room downstairs that's pretty much never seen except for by me, it's not that big of a deal. Now, if you're going to use a spray can, like for primer or for dull coat, then you definitely want to vent because it's not so much the paint particles as it is the propellant and the smell from the propellant, specifically with dull coat. It's horrific. And that's why you want to be well ventilated, because that just stinks up the house and it's probably just bad for you in general, which is why you always want to do it in a well ventilated area like outside or something. But yeah, let's see here. I'm starting a beginner's league for 40K with some friends. What points level would you suggest for the first few teaching games? A lot of you guys are saying 1,000 points. I would almost suggest, if you can, I would almost suggest looking up Combat Patrol. So Combat Patrol is 400 points. And there are some sort of specific rules, so you can't just use all kinds of weird stuff, like specific rules about if you use a vehicle, it can only be of this many hull points, or not hull points, but armor points or less. And you can't use anything with like a 2-up save, you know, it's got to be 3-up, just different things like that. So yeah, Combat Patrol would be also a good thing to look at as far as for like easy, because then 400 points is way easier to get together, you know, 2 forces for that if you're going to be teaching people. So take a look into Combat Patrol rules online. I know they have Combat Patrol tournaments at Adepticon, so you should be able to download off the Adepticon website, which I believe is adepticon.org. You should be able to download information off their website and go through there and get that stuff figured out so you can kind of play it that way. Hello, Uncle Adam. This is Almendanism from Instagram. Have you edited your Valhalla video yet? I have not. Yesterday when I woke up, it was mostly unpacking and then laying about. I did at one point go run some errands, went to my local game shop, watched some guys play Age of Sigmar, picked up that game that book that I bought. I had to go to Verizon because my wife dropped her phone and it got all broken, and so she's going to be getting my old phone and I'm going to be getting a new phone sometime next week. So that'll be fine, but I had to take care of that stuff. So otherwise, yeah, I haven't done any editing on anything yet. The pictures that I was showing earlier off of the Instagram was about the most editing of anything I've done so far. That'll probably happen at some point this week. I'll start going through and editing the footage. I was originally going to try to record a video of me there at the place with mountains in the background talking about stuff, but it was early enough in the week that I just didn't feel like I knew enough about it yet. So it's going to be probably me at the studio or whatever talking about the experience, and then I will be interspersing what's known as B-roll footage, whereas the main camera is known as A-roll. So I'll be interspersing B-roll footage that I shot from the convention so you can see the stuff I'm talking about or whatever, and so we'll go from there. But that's how it's going to probably end up going. Let's see here. What else have we got? I'll talk about airbrushing. I love airbrushing. I think it's great. Was there anyone playing Kings of War at the retreat? I don't think there was. There was some 8th edition fantasy that some guys were playing earlier in the week. There was War Machine. There was 40K. There was 30K. There was Drop Fleet Commander. There was Age of Sigmar. There was Mordheim. There was... Oh, God, I'm missing a couple, I think. There was at least a couple other games there, too. But... And then some board games, and even some kind of gateway games. Like I said, there was Zombicide, a couple different games of that. And there were some board games that some people were playing. But no, there was no Kings of War, though. Let's see here. Douglas Hooker, played a demo game. Advocate medal, please? Bolt action at my local club. All fantasy, anti-Age of Sigmar, and 30K and 40K players. I think they enjoyed it. I think bolt action is cool, and I'm really looking forward to getting some games in of Conflict 47. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to happen, because I'm the only person in my area right now that has it, so I may end up having to build 2 forces and then doing one of those deals. So we'll see how it goes, yeah. Badger. Oh, Badger airbrushes. I thought someone was just naming animals. Okay, yeah. Badger airbrushes. I use Iowata myself, but Badger's also a very good brand. And I know a bunch of people that play them as well, so... Rotor Rooster says, I'm surprised that Mordheim was played. It was only played a couple of times. Like I said, there was that big game on Thursday night, but otherwise, I think it was just because the board was there and it was super cool looking, and there was a guy who was a really big fan and had all the parts and all the stuff. Like, he supplied all the war bands and everyone played, so it was all his stuff. He was a local that had brought a bunch of stuff as well, besides the stuff that Sean from Blue Table had brought. So, yeah. All right, well, this has been kind of a weird episode fraught with technical difficulties and such. I do need to make a technical difficulties frame here for the XSplit. So I'm going to log off because it's 11 a.m. And again, I apologize for the video issues. I'm going to try to figure that part out. It wasn't video, it was audio. I'm glad that we kind of got rid of the hiss and the echo and all that stuff, but then we couldn't, you couldn't see my smiling face as much during that time. So, yeah, I'll see you guys again in 2 weeks for the live show. We'll figure out just beforehand probably what the subject for that show is going to be, but I appreciate everybody checking it out and looking at my vacation slideshow, as it were, from Valhalla, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see those pictures again, you can follow me on Instagram at Tabletop Minions, or I think most of them are on Twitter and also on my Facebook. And again, don't forget about the Facebook group, the Tabletop Minions Paint Showcase Club. If you want to see a bunch of really cool stuff, if you want to ask some questions, if you want to post pictures of your stuff, whether it's work in progress or not, I ask that you don't link to Kickstarters and stores and your own blog and stuff like that, but just if you've got some pictures you want to show off, definitely go there, show them off, and it's a good community. It's over 1,500, I think, people right now, so I hope everything's working out well, and we'll see you live again in 2 weeks. Now I'm going to wave goodbye.